Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Ask Talk Show. Today's show, ladies and gentlemen, is affordable and safe housing for LGBTQ older adults. Hurry back and join us. Hi, I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Ask Talk Show. Today's show, ladies and gentlemen, is safe and affordable housing for LGBTQ older adults, and we have in the house with us today Reverend Roland Stringfellow. Good morning.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Indeed.
Yes. Now, Reverend Stringfellow, the name is longer than that. I mean, I didn't give your church title, but I need for you to provide us that, as well as I definitely want to start off with some history about yourself. So what's the name of the church?
The church is the Metropolitan Community Church of Detroit, or MCC Detroit for short.
Okay. And let's go right into some things about yourself before we jump right into this affordable housing program.
Absolutely. So I am a native of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I lived there practically all of my life and attended school, college, and undergrad and graduate school. But then I traveled to Oakland, California to do my theological work with the emphasis of LGBT ministry. And I grew up as a Baptist minister, was in the Baptist church for 10 years, and then I just, realized that I was gay and came out of the closet and left the church, not realizing that I could be both a pastor and still be true to myself. And it was a call to come out of the closet because I was going to live authentically, live in spirit and in truth, and not tell lies to people or not get involved in relationships with people, being duplicitous. And so, in any case, I left, but then discovered there was a school in California where I could do this type of study and studies of the scripture. And I did and traveled there, lived there for about 10 years and worked for the Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley, California. I'm still employed with them. I've been with them for the last 15 years, and I do outreach to African American congregations that want to understand the intersection between a person's spirituality and their sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. So I work with African American pastors and laity in that respect. And then the church here in Detroit called me, and came from California to Detroit. Oftentimes people say, wow, you left California, but California is pretty expensive now and so forth. And I literally just got tired. I'm from the Midwest. So being back in the Midwest was really important to me. And one of the best things, I got to be close to my mother in the last years of her life. So I was able to travel back and forth to Indiana for that.
Okay. So, I think what the viewers will learn today, that there is acceptance, okay?
Yes.
And so a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't know about that. Well, you said you found your calling.
Yes.
So when you found your calling and you knew that there was room and opportunity to educate people, what was one of the first things you did?
Well, again, when I accepted myself, actually, let me step back. Before I accepted myself, I was in the Baptist church, did a lot of, I would say, self-hatred, because I was teaching and preaching what I had been taught about gender expression and sexual orientation. And I compared it, there's a passage of scripture that talks about the thorn in the flesh, and I thought that maybe that this was it. But I tell you what, Marcia, that how I got to the place where I am today was this entire time I had been a pastor in a Baptist church for 10 years. I never preached with peace.
Okay.
There's nothing worse to have a pastor who doesn't preach it with peace. And that was me. And I got to the place where I was, studying and seeking God, and got to the place where I recognized that the peace came when I realized God loved me just as I was.
Yes, sir.
And I accepted myself. And that was when I knew God was with me on this journey. And even though I left the church, I wasn't kicked out or thrown out like so many others have been, or shamed out of the church. I left on my own volition. And but like so many others who have left the church, they have left, God as well. That was not me. I went to another church. I just kind of sat in the back. But then continued to pursue theological education. That was important because I knew and wanted to understand the scripture. And I wanted to understand the theology of this. And that's what took me on the journey. And that's how I help my congregation today.
Okay. Well, I feel you, Pastor. Okay. So the community, the Metropolitan Community Church, your congregation is pretty much made of what?
Well, it is open to all people. We have people of all different backgrounds, but it is predominantly lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender individuals, and quite a few allies, those who aren't in those alphabets, but they are allied to the community. And many times why even an ally would come to our congregation is because they had been also victims of spiritual violence. And I don't know if your viewers are even familiar with that term. We know what physical violence is and emotional violence. Spiritual violence is when someone from the pulpit uses the Bible or the name of God to lambaste or to really beat up someone and say, God is not for you, God doesn't want you. And that leaves a spiritual scar and really, pushes the person away. So that happens to a lot of people. It happens to women who have had a child out of wedlock or someone who's been divorced. There seems to be many different reasons why people get kicked out of churches or shamed out of churches. So many people who come to our congregation said, we're tired of really a hard line way, and I just want to know that, am I loved? And it's like, absolutely, you are. And we teach the scripture. We do. And so it's not, us playing church. No, this is a church. And this is, we adhere to, and it's a Christian church as well. People might think it's not, but no, it is. And for those who might question, like, well, how can that be? Well, let's think about it. There was a time when African Americans were not accepted, within mainstreamed white denominations because scriptures were taught that, slaves obey your masters, or the curse of Ham. But we don't adhere to that anymore. Or women, be silent and, stay behind your husband and so forth, or don't cut your hair, or, the whole litany of things. And some churches still adhere to that, but many no longer do that. I believe when it comes to LGBT individuals, this is going to be the next wave of understanding that the church, particularly the Christian church, will need to understand. And I believe many eyes are open because if you ask, many folks have LGBT individuals in their families. And what is important? Kinship and being together is so very important. So we go about helping folks heal from spiritual violence and to show the all-inclusive love of God.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we're going to take a break, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back with some more good information about affordable and safe housing for LGBTQ older adults. We'll be right back.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides at aarp.org/caregiving.
And welcome back to the show. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you know I always tell you, get your pen and paper out. There's always some resources that you can use when you watch the Just Ask Talk Show. Now, the number's at the bottom of the screen, 1-800-323-5336. Or you can always email me, Marcia at Just Ask Talk Show, if you have a question. And about any of our guests, even the Reverend answered some questions. So definitely if you have a question, all right? So I just wanted to let you know that we're here for you. Every show that you see ties in with some resources that you or a family member or a neighbor can use. Don't be afraid to ask, just ask and pass the information on. All right. Now, Reverend, Stringfellow, we try to make sure that the community at large knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. And today to have you here with us, we wanted to talk about the Shepherd House. So I wanted to ask you some questions about how did this particular project come about, because a lot of people are like, well, what's the big deal about this show? But this show has passion to it. So let's start off with, tell us about the project that you guys are working with.
Absolutely. And so, like many congregations throughout Metro Detroit, they have partnered with developers to do affordable housing for senior citizens. We're no different. We were able to connect with a great developer out of Chicago who have connected with us to say, let's do affordable housing that will be welcoming to LGBT individuals. And so it's not going to be exclusively for LGBT individuals because of the fair housing. You can't discriminate one direction or the other, but it is open to all, and we want folks to know that everyone who comes, this will be a safe space. Now, let me tell you why that's very important.
Okay, I want to ask you, why is this a safe space?
Because oftentimes we hear how young people have been bullied in school, for who they are. And, a while ago there was a campaign called, It Gets Better. It's like, don't take your own life. It will get better. Mm-hmm. The same thing is true for older adults. We have a lot of older adults who will come out of the closet later in life after a spouse has died, or literally they just they're awakened to who they are later in life. And so oftentimes for them to go to senior housing that's affordable, many times it's run by religious institutions. Mm-hmm. And many religious institutions that have been just call it what it is, prejudiced against LGBT adults. So you have these older adults who identify as LGBT who are being bullied by other residents and being isolated. There is a story that I do want to share that of a woman who was who identified as transgender, and she went into a facility. They looked at her birth name, saw it was male, and said, "Well, we know we can serve Jim, but not Jane." So they took all of her clothes and got rid of them, gave her, and she had surgery now, and gave her male clothing, and she was isolated, she was taunted, she was teased, she took her own life. Wow. Those are the types of stories we need to let people know it is unfair, it is not right. So when we talk about having safe housing that's affordable for individuals, that is the reason why a project like the Ray Shepherd House is so very important.
And I'm glad you said that, because just hearing what you said about how this woman took her own life from being, ostracized by people, it doesn't make sense. I mean, she had went through what she went through in her life, made the transition to be who she really wanted to be.
Absolutely.
And then some unknown parties come along and say, oh no, that's not acceptable. I mean, first of all, in my opinion, a person is struggling in their mind first to make this decision, to come out, to have this change or whatever. And the torment of knowing that from day to day that you have tormented yourself first to who you can come out to who you can say that this is me, that's torture in itself.
It is.
Especially if you're a young person and you say, my dad, my mom would never approve of this.
Yeah.
And so you
Yeah.
have to leave the home and you may start acting out or whatever just so that you can get it out of your system. Or you start wandering and being in the streets and you shouldn't have to because you may not have made this decision on your own. It may, I don't know, genetic, I don't know. But whatever it was, your family should never hold anything against you, and the general public shouldn't either. I don't get it.
Well, you know, I say holistic health is so vitally important. Mind, body, and spirit.
Correct.
And having all of those in agreement with one another. And so you're right, Marsha, that for some individuals, it does begin, you know, in the mind, not as a disability per se. Because oftentimes people say, well, something's wrong, or who touched you? You know, you must have been abused.
Right.
And that is not, this is what I say to folks. When you first discovered that you were attracted to somebody, if you're a heterosexual, someone of the opposite gender, did you have to have a sexual experience first to understand that you were attracted? And the answer is no. We like who we like.
Right.
And the same is true for people who are same gender loving. That, you know, it's not that we wake up one day and decide like, this is what I want to do, because again of the ostracization that many people face. But going back to the story I shared about the woman who took her own life, you know, oftentimes people don't realize the impact they have on other people by the laughing, the teasing, the condemnation, whatever. And like I said, and you don't know what impact that has on someone's mind, body, spirit.
Well, I can tell you one thing, you know, parents teach their children not to be bullied, but the adults bully too. So I don't see the difference. You know, your kid comes home crying saying I was bullied in school, but yet you may have bullied someone at work. So the bully is a bully, okay?
Yeah.
And you know, and then the outcome of surviving a bully is hard enough. You know, I don't need to take my life, but how do I get across that I'm a human being and I deserve to be here just as much as you do?
That's right. That's right.
You know, we can go on along this on.
But I would love to tell you about Ray Shepard.
Well, you're going to tell me about that, but I wanted to ask you, how would your congregation support the residents in this unique community?
So we are the lead organization for the Ray Shepard House, and so and what that means is that members of my congregation on move-in day, we're planning to be there to help them get settled, have tape or scissors, water. If they need to make a run to a Target or a grocery store, we're going to be there to do that. And it's not about they have to then join our church. That's not what it's about. We want to give back. We just want to say we're welcome home. Wherever you've been, you know, we want to make sure that this place, not only do you feel safe and warm, but most importantly, welcomed. And and for so many people, no matter how they identify, whether they identify as LGBT or they're straight identified, that this will be a wonderful, welcoming, warm community for all who walk through the doors.
And that's how it should be. Definitely, you know, just to bring people together. And you talk about housing, you're talking about being comfortable, feeling safe, and, you know, wanting to be somewhere that you can appreciate and enjoy. So I tell you what, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go right into Raymond Shepard. So we'll be right back.
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You look good, girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch, but the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week, help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork about paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
take care.
We will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.
Go, honey!
If you love them enough to drive an hour to cheer them on as they get beat 11-0 in the rain, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
And welcome back. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I'm just very warm and compassionate about having Reverend Stringfellow here with us today, because you know what? What you don't see is that there's a lot of people out in the communities that's hurting. And this congregation and many more have come together to design a safe place for people to live, not just congregate, but to live. And so we want to go into the story about Raymond Shepherd, and without further ado, Reverend Stringfellow, tell us about Raymond Shepherd, because I know we have a photo of him coming up. So
Absolutely.
Tell us about him.
Ray Shepherd was just a warm, sweet soul of a person, a member of my congregation for well over 20 years, and he was a fixture in the community of Ferndale. So he was well known by so many people, and he identified as gay, and so was faithful to his mother, and he left our congregation some funds, because this was his vision, to see safe, affordable housing. Because when he got to a place where he could no longer care for himself and needed to go to a facility, he felt isolated, that he really couldn't come out. He couldn't really make friends, and and snickering and so forth. So to have a housing that would be welcoming was, right up his alley. And so that is why we named this the Raymond E. Shepherd House, or the Shepherd House for short.
All right. So this photo that we have, well, this is just the diagram photo, but is this the diagram for how the structure will look?
Correct. And so this will be in Ferndale on 9 Mile, 9 Mile and Paxton. Currently, there's a flower shop that is there. It's a Bloom's flower shop. And so their new location is across the street. This is where the old location will be, next to the CVS, for those who might be familiar with it. So this will be the structure we're planning to have. We're going to break ground either late spring or early summer of this year. And so it's going to be a 42-unit building with outdoor parking and a community space for, we're planning to have worship services there as well, but it's going to be open to anyone throughout the week.
So I noticed the other photos is coming up. The third photo actually has like the front.
Yes.
So that is gorgeous. I mean, just having an idea that there's people, moving around, and there's a park and parking structure, and the high-rise building itself with businesses flourishing around there.
Absolutely. And again, if anyone is familiar with that area of Ferndale on 9 Mile East 9 Mile, there are some other structures that look similar to this as well. So it's really going to blend in well with what's currently there, the other apartments and so forth. There's also happens to be senior housing, a high-rise, also across the street from this here. So this would be a nice little complex for senior folks. In fact, some of my congregants live in that high-rise across the way. They're looking forward to moving across the street for this.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Why not? Now, I know we have a couple of photos of, is this part of your pastoring right here? Because I know we have some.
Absolutely. We're very active in the community, and so there's some photos with myself and some of my associate pastors throughout the years. And so, not only do we have service on Sundays, but we will travel to the state capitol to advocate for not only LGBT individuals, but other issues that deal with human rights, that make sure that everyone is safe and protected throughout the state of Michigan.
So this photo here, is this your brother or is this you? I'm just asking.
That was me a while ago when I had my longer hair.
Reverend Stringfellow.
My hair was quite long at one point, but I tell you what, I actually shaved my head bald a year after my mother passed away. And I wanted to have an outward sign of the inward change that I was going through. And I have not let it grow to that length again.
All right. Well, I was just kidding, ladies and gentlemen. So, ideally, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the special needs that the LGBTQ seniors have that differ from straight identified seniors?
Absolutely, because you're like, well, What's the difference? So, why do we need this? Well, I mentioned again about the issue of safety, so I'm not going to go into that again. But oftentimes when you are single and do not have dependents, children, to care for you, oftentimes you are isolated. And so one of the main needs of folks is just that need for community, and to have someone to rely upon, to have someone to simply take you to the grocery store if you can't get around, or the things that most people would rely upon their children to do.
Right.
This community hopefully will take that place, for those who need.
Right, because when you don't have children or any assistance from family members,
correct,
you're totally on your own. It's easy to go into a deep depression and feel like this is it. Okay, you don't have nowhere to turn, and this is regardless if it's LGBTQ or if it's a straight person. But either way it go, you need a support group somewhere, and you need to be able to know that there is support out there for you, and then also give back as you see that you've done well in these, with these services. You can pass that information on to someone else, so people don't get lost in the trenches of like, I'm just out here.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to actually when you guys break ground, and I'm hoping. So you're breaking ground when?
Like I said, it's going to be either this spring, late spring, or early summer, really kind of depending upon when materials can arrive. It's been a back order on various things, but yes.
Yeah, well, we're looking for, just knowing that you guys have the opportunity, and Raymond Shepherd will be pleased.
He'll be smiling down.
Yes, he will be, and that's a wonderful thing, to have something named after you because what you believe in and what you feel is important, and that's what we do here at Just Dance. We try to make sure people know what's out here, where to get the resources, and who to communicate with. So,
absolutely.
Okay, so I definitely appreciate you coming. Anything else you want to tell us, Reverend, before we go? Because I know, you're just a wealth of information.
Well, again, if anyone is looking for a warm, welcoming, community, or they want more information about the Ray Shepherd House, they can contact us at the church, and I believe the website is on the screen as well.
We have that information.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I always say this, but I do mean it. Will you come back and join us again?
Absolutely, anytime.
Okay. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I had a warm day today. Okay. I felt that Reverend Stringfellow gave us some very resourceful information. So if you have a question, and you can always give us a call, 1-800-323-5336. We'll get the information over to Reverend Stringfellow, and definitely you want to check out the church, the Metropolitan Community Church of Detroit. Okay, and what is that? Where is it located?
Actually, it is located in Ferndale.
Ferndale.
It started in Detroit, but it's in Ferndale. There is the LGBT Center in Ferndale called Affirmations.
Okay.
We meet in the lobby of Affirmations, so it's very accessible, and free parking on Sundays.
Thank you so much. All right, you heard it from him yourself, so you know where to go. But if you get turned around, give me a call, all right? I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Dance. And what do I always say? If you have a question about a person with a disability or just a general question, don't be afraid to ask. Just ask. I'm your host. Thank you.